Hello and welcome to Cloud and Proud, Azure Technical Series with me, Daniel Baker. Now, Cloud and Proud is a series of workshop sessions designed to help you understand Azure and prepare you for certification success. It's designed around a series of business case studies that focus on key aspects of using the Microsoft Cloud. We will work together and together we will build business solutions using a variety of tools. If you have any questions or feedback during the sessions, please feel free to reach out to me because I'm always happy to hear from you. In our second session, we revisit Contoso, a small born-in-the-cloud manufacturing company that wishes to build its computing platform in Azure. Keen to pioneer with the latest technologies, Contoso has invested significant funds in building a research and development team. The team have highlighted that applications and dev environments require frequent changes, and this often involves significant effort and long delays. In this session, we will discuss how to use Azure DevTest Labs and how to create and manage environments to enforce cost control and resource optimization. Developers are always looking at ways to reduce delays in creating and managing their test environments. One of the ways they've achieved this is by adopting the Microsoft Cloud. By utilizing the power of Azure, developers have solved the problem of environmental delays and enabled self-service within a new cost-efficient structure. But developers still need to spend considerable time configuring these environments, and decision makers are often uncertain about how to leverage the cloud to maximize their cost savings without adding too much process overhead. Azure DevTest Labs addresses these issues and helps developers quickly create environments while minimizing waste and controlling cost. You can test the latest version of your application by quickly provisioning both Windows and Linux environments with reusable templates and artifacts. Furthermore, you can easily integrate your deployment pipeline with DevTest Labs to provision on-demand environments and scale up load testing for training and demo purposes. Azure DevTest Labs offers the following key benefits. Firstly, it simplifies and speeds the process of running a dev test environment. With Azure, we can provision virtual machines in minutes instead of days or weeks. And unlike any other cloud provider, we only pay by the minute, allowing us to manage our environment with both control and agility. Furthermore, DevTest Labs allow us to replicate real-world usage scenarios in sandbox environments at test and production scale to catch and fix problems before final release. If your production environment is running on Azure, you can create an exact replica in DevTest Labs and gain a precise view into how your application will behave in the real world. What's more, because it's built on battle-tested Hyper-V virtualization technology, your existing on-premises virtual machines will run on Azure with no change. This results in higher fidelity between dev test and production environments, with applications that have been built and tested in Azure being easily migrated back across to on-premise environments if need be. With visibility and tight control on resource usage, you can eliminate waste such as virtual machine sprawl and implement chargebacks to internal customers. The advanced automation tools help reduce errors while unified management balances access and enables governance capabilities such as cost control. Finally, Azure DevTest Labs lets you take full advantage of existing applications, skills, and expertise by providing a broad support ecosystem for both Microsoft and open source solutions. This includes SQL, SharePoint, SAP, Linux, as well as familiar tools such as System Center and PowerShell scripting. So before we jump into the demo and build our environment, let's first familiarize ourselves with some key concepts summarized in the following list. Firstly, we have artifacts, which are used to deploy and configure applications after a virtual machine is provisioned. Artifacts can be tools that you want to install on the virtual machine, such as Visual Studio, actions that you want to run on the virtual machine, such as cloning a repository, or simply applications that you wish to test after an operating system installs. Artifacts are ARM-based JSON files that contain simple instructions on how to deploy and apply configuration to your environment. Artifact repositories are Git repositories where artifacts are checked in. These can be both public and private and reused in multiple labs to enable the reuse and sharing of code. Base is an image with all of the tools and settings pre-installed and configured to help you quickly create a virtual machine. With DevTest Labs, you can provision a virtual machine by picking an existing base and adding artifacts. Then you can save this modified machine as a base for future deployment. Formulas, in addition to base images, provide a mechanism for fast virtual machine provisioning. A formula in DevTest Labs is a list of default property values used to create a lab VM. With formulas, virtual machines with the same set of properties such as base image, VM size, virtual network, and artifacts can be created without needing to specify those parameters each time. When creating a virtual machine from a formula, the default values are suggested and can either be used as is or modified if need be. Caps are mechanisms to minimize waste. For example, you can set a cap to restrict the number of VMs that can be created either per user or in a lab, and also specify build sizes and tiers. Finally, policies help control cost, allowing you to specify schedules to automatically shut down VMs or start during specific timeframes. Okay, so over to our desktop, let's jump into our subscription. Now, this is a brand new subscription, nothing on there at present. All I've done is remove the default tiles. Let's go ahead and edit the dashboard, and I'm going to call this Contoso Development Team, and we're done customizing. And then from there, I'm going to come across to resource groups, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new resource group for my DevTest Lab. So I'm going to call this Contoso Dev, and I'm going to use my Azure pass, and I'm going to put that into Central US. So with that, I'm going to pin to dashboard and hit create. So that'll take a moment to create. That's now done. And within our resource group, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to add. And from here, I'm going to search for a dev test, and we can see it already come up, a DevTest Lab. So let's go ahead and select DevTest Lab. And DevTest Labs help developers and testers to quickly create virtual machines in Azure to deploy and test their applications. You can easily provision Windows and Linux machines using reusable templates while minimizing waste and controlling cost. Okay, let's go ahead and hit create. And from here, I'm going to call this Contoso DTL, and we can see it's happy with that. I'm going to use my Azure pass in Central US, and I'm enabling auto shutdown. Now we're going to go through all of the options once it's created. I'm going to select standard storage type just to minimize my costs. And again, I'm going to pin this to dashboard and hit create. So that will take a moment to create, maybe a minute or two. So what I'm going to do is pause the video and we'll come back in a minute. And we're back. As you can see, Contoso DevTest Labs has been created. You should be seeing something similar to this. So you've got your main pane and you've got the settings pane open. Let's just close this down for a moment and concentrate on this main pane. So from here, you've got your essentials. Under your essentials, you can see you've got your resource group. And if I go ahead and click on the resource group, you'll be able to see all of the components that have just been created. So we have the DevTest Lab, we have a virtual network, and we have a couple of storage accounts that have just been created for us. If I close this down, you can then see the virtual machines, and you've got some quick start links in there. So getting started, the MSDN forums, and the ability to leave feedback. All of these are customizable. You can go in and you can add sections, and then you can add new things from the tile gallery if need be. So I'm going to click Done Customizing. And what I want to do is I want to come across to All Settings. And I just want to go through all of these sections before we begin building our virtual machines. So let's start at the top. To begin with, we've got Support and Troubleshooting. The top one, Troubleshooting, if I click on that, what this is going to do is it's going to give me some suggested solutions to problems that I may be facing. Now, if I can't find it from the troubleshooter, what I can do is I can go ahead and look at my support options by clicking on this link. And effectively what that does for me is it's going to generate a new support request. Okay, so I'm just going to go through, fill out the basic information, and it will generate a support ticket for me. Also here we've got Audit Logs. Now, audit logs are going to be showing me what's happening within my DevTest lab, and all of this is customizable. If I come up, you can see I can filter, I can go in, I can choose my columns. So I might want to go in and add some new information such as subscription ID. Okay, and that changes. I can choose whether or not I want to see the chart, and obviously I can export that information if need be. Okay. So let's just close that down. If we then come down to manage, you can see we've got properties, and that's just going to show us things like our subscription name, subscription ID, and the status of DevTest Lab. From here, I've got all virtual machines. Now, if I click on all virtual machines, this is going to show me all virtual machines that have been created within my DevTest Lab. And at the moment, we can see there's nothing to display because we haven't created anything. If I come down, we've got artifact repositories. And if I come down, you can see we've got that public repo. But go back to what I was saying earlier in this session, I have the ability to go in and add additional ones. Now, these might be public ones, these may be private ones. And all I need to do is put in the access token in there in order to connect. Finally, under Manage, if I come down to Virtual Networks, we can see the virtual network that's been created. Now, if I click on the Contoso DevTest Labs, okay, we can see there's a DevTest Lab Contoso subnet in there. But all of this I can modify. We can see that I can use in virtual machine creations. This one is allowed a public IP address. And if I come up to the hyperlink, what it's going to do is it's going to focus onto that virtual network and allow me to go in and modify my address space if need be. It's going to allow me to go in and add subnets if I want, or modify the subnet range, add DNS servers, and lock down to protect from deletion if need be. All of these will allow me to export the templates for future use too. Okay. So if we carry on, what we then have is formulas. Now, as you said before, formulas are reusable bases. So if I go into a formula, then what I can do is I can start putting together combinations of bases and artifacts to make custom deployment templates. So if we go ahead and say add, and just wait for this to load up. So maybe I'm looking, I don't know, for data center. And I'm going to choose Windows Server 2012 R2 Data Center. Then from here, what I can do is I can give it a formula name, and I'm going to say Win 2012 R2. And I'm going to come down and I'm going to put a description. So Windows Server with, I don't know, let's put Chrome on it. So we're going to say Windows Server with Chrome browser. And I've got the image in there. Now, the next thing I need to do is look at my virtual machine size. So I'm going to go ahead and click in here. I'm sure you're all familiar with this window. This is going to show me all of the different pricing tiers that are available within Azure. And I think what we'll do is let's come down and we will select, let's go for an A2. So 2 cores, 3.5 gig of RAM, 4 data disks. That's going to be fine. Okay, so we've selected our virtual machine size. We know it's going into the Contoso DevTest Lab virtual network and the subnet that was created. We're going to choose to give this machine a public IP address, and I'm going to come across to artifacts. Now, artifacts, you can see there's a whole bunch of artifacts in there, but if I add a new artifact repository, I'd be able to add more in too. I'm going to go ahead and say for this machine, I want to install Chrome. And it says installs Chrome using the Chocolate E package manager. So I'm going to say OK. I'm going to say OK, and we can now see that there's one artifact selected. So let's go ahead and create that formula. Now that will take a minute or two to create, so I'll pause the video and we'll come back when that's done. And we're back. and we can see that our formula has been created and a status is now displayed as ready for deployment at a later stage. So let's close that and carry on with our tour. So we've just done formulas. Let's have a look at marketplace images. Now, as a dev test lab, we want granular control of the types of images and types of operating systems that we can deploy in our lab environment. And at the moment, it's set to allow all Azure Marketplace images as virtual machine bases. So this is going to include both Windows machines and Linux-based machines and SQL servers and so on. Now, I want to control that. I want to lock that down. So I'm going to say no to allow all Marketplace images. And what I want to do is I want to deselect everything, and I want to come down and select maybe just a couple of images that I want to allow through. So I'm going to say that we're going to allow Windows Server 2012 R2 Data Center and maybe Windows Server 2016 Technical Preview 5. So with that, if I hit save, that will now update the marketplace images that I'm allowed to use, and it just enforces that granular control that we were talking about. So that's now saved. Let's come down to the next one. Now, the next one is custom images. Now, this is really cool. What it allows you to do is it allows you to upload any on-prem images that you may have. And the way you do this is if I come up and click on custom image, then what it's going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to give it a name. So I don't know, let's say we had a Windows 10 machine. Okay, we then give it a description. From here, I give it a VHD information. Now you can see we can use an existing VHD if there's already one in our repository, or we can upload one using PowerShell. And what's really nice about this is it writes the PowerShell script for you. So you can see, look, we can just copy this PowerShell script, and from there we've got add Azure VHD, the destination, and all we need to do is just replace the VHD location here. So we can copy and paste that into PowerShell ISE, point to the new location, and that will upload into our DevTest Lab repository. I'm going to come out of here. Now, we are going to create a custom image later, but we're going to do it using the graphical portal. So I'm going to OK that. I'm going to close this down, and we're going to continue. So if I carry on down, you can see that we then have cost management. Now, cost management allows us to look at our cost thresholds. Okay, so we can go in. It says this chart shows the estimated cost of the lab for the current calendar month using pay-as-you-go offer rates. Obviously, we haven't created anything yet, so there's going to be no information in here. But what I can also do is I can break it down and I can look at cost per resource. So if we come back and we move down to our virtual machine policies. So the first one we're going to look at is allowed virtual machine sizes. Now, again, I'm sure you're aware of all the different tiers. We have the D series, we have the A series, we have the G series, the DS series, and these can vary wildly in costs. So in terms of development, what we might want to do is we might want to limit the types of machines that we can use. And it says virtual machines in this lab are limited to standard storage because the lab was created with a standard storage tier. If you want to use premium storage in a virtual machine, then we'd need to create the lab with premium storage. And if you cast your mind back, that was that option that we had the choice of selecting when we created the DevTest Lab. So I'm going to go ahead and enable this rule. And what I want to do is I want to come down and say we're going to allow a standard A2 and a standard A3. They're the only types of machines that we're going to be able to create. But again, you can see all of them are in there. I just want to pick these two. So I'm going to have one with 2 cores, one with 4 cores, and we can see the RAM there. So let's go ahead and save this. And again, we can see that's now saved. So if we close that window down, let's come down to our next set of policies. Now, virtual machines per user, I'm going to limit each user to create a maximum of 5 virtual machines. Okay, so they'll be able to create 5 virtual machines, either an A2 or an A3. And what's more, I'm going to say that there's a maximum amount of virtual machines in this lab of 15. So another way for me to control resource allocation. So one of the big things that people asked for and we used to use automation with was to control when machines started and shut down at the end of the day. In DevTest Labs, we've built this into the portal. So we can see we've got auto shutdown and auto start. If I come across to auto shutdown and we look at the policy, we can see that it's enabled and we're going to schedule a shutdown every day at 7 p.m. Okay, we can go in there and we can change this if need be. We can change the time zone, but I'm going to leave it as 7 o'clock. That's fine. If I then come down to auto start, I can choose to go in and create a new policy on when I want this virtual machine to start. And again, by default, you can see this Monday through to Friday at 7 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, the machines won't start. So again, it's easy as clicking on. I'm going to leave that as off. And we'll carry on. So the next thing that we have is tags. Now, tags allow us to control resource management. What I can do is I can place a tag onto one of my resources, and that can then be used for cost control, and it can be used for automation purposes. If we come down to the next one, we have locks. And what locks allow us to do is to protect our resource. And we can see we can protect it based on a resource group, based on a subscription. So if I come down and click on add, I can go and add a new lock, put a note in there and specify the type of lock that I want. Do I want to make it read only? Do I want to protect this DevTest Lab from accidental deletion? Okay. Let's close that down. And finally, you've got users. So standard role-based access control that we would have seen in other videos allow us to go in and specify who can do what within this DevTest Lab. So with that done, we've seen all of the settings. Let's go ahead and start building a virtual machine in our DevTest Lab. So what we'll see is as we come up to virtual machine, all of the rules that we've just set up in our policies will begin to show. We can see that I don't have all of the marketplace images. I just have my Windows Server 2012 R2 data center and my technical preview 5 marketplace images. And I have that formula that we created earlier. Now, if I click on the formula, this is the formula that gives me a Windows 2012 data center, but also gives me the Chrome artifact. So this should install Chrome as well. If I go ahead under virtual machine name, I'm going to call this DevTest Lab 1, and that's happy with that. And under username, I'm just going to call this student, and I'm going to go ahead and enter a password. And then from here, we can see our virtual machine sizes. And again, I should be limited to the 2 sizes that I've defined in my policy. So we're just going to wait for that to wake up, and we can see that A2 standard or A3 standard. I'm going to select my A2 standard. We can see the virtual network and the subnet that it's going on to. Now, I'm going to go ahead and leave a public IP address switched on. The reason I'm doing that is because I haven't set up a virtual network for my DevTest Lab. If we come down, we can see the artifact that's selected, but we can go in and we can make changes to this. Okay, so formulas are not set in stone. I can go in and I can modify. They're just guidelines. So if I close that, click on the View ARM template, and we can see the ARM template and what's going to be happening with that machine. So again, I could quite easily copy this and export it if need be, but I'm going to go ahead and say OK, and from there hit create. Now with that done, as you can see, it's starting to create the virtual machine, and just like in a production environment, that's going to take a few minutes. So what we'll do is we will pause the video and we will come back when that's done. And we're back, and we can see that DevTest Lab 1 is now up and running. If I go ahead and click on DevTest Lab 1, we can see a familiar toolbar. I can see settings, connect, start, stop, delete. But what's new in our DevTest Lab is I have the ability to add artifacts. So if I click on artifacts, I can then go ahead and inject new artifacts into this machine if need be. So I'm going to go ahead and come out of here. If we come down, we can see we have opt-in and opt-out of auto start and auto shutdown. We can see that auto shutdown we've opted in at 7 o'clock, but we didn't enable the auto start. So we can go ahead and we can change that if need be. I'm going to go ahead and click on all settings. Now, this is slightly different from a virtual machine that you'd see in production. We don't have all of the options down the side, but you can see we can go into auditing. We can look at virtual machine diagnostics. We can create a formula from this machine, and we can create a custom image. So let's go ahead and connect into this machine and open up that RDP file. And then what we'll do is we will check to make sure that Chrome is installed, and maybe we'll create a batch file that then allows us to see it once we've cloned the machine. So let's go student and type in my password and say OK. And from there, I'm just connecting into this machine. Now, if you're wondering why my mouse is jumping across, it's because I'm running a dual monitor setup, and there the windows are appearing on my primary monitor. So we'll just wait for this virtual machine to initialize. That will take a moment or two. So I'll pause the video, and when we come back, we'll go ahead and check to see if those artifacts have been installed. Okay, and that machine's now done. Now, instantly, we can see we've got Google Chrome on our desktop, so the artifact is installed. Let me just scroll down. Apologies, I don't have great screen resolution here. But if I come down, you can see I've got Google Chrome on my toolbar. And if I click on Google Chrome, what that should do is it should then launch up with the welcome to Chrome and invite me to start setting this up. If I just close down, opens up the browser. So we can see that that artifact has indeed been installed. Now, what I want to do is I just want to go ahead and maybe go into the C drive of this system. And I'm going to go ahead and create a new, let's do a text document. And what I'm going to do is under View, I'm actually going to choose to show the file name extensions. And I'm going to rename this to Contoso.bat. Now, the reason I'm doing this is in a moment I'm going to clone this machine, and I want this batch file to appear in the new version. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this, and let's just go and put a very simple message in there. So let's go MSG, and what we want to run is this machine is for Contoso dev. This is only. Okay, so we'll just run that very simple batch file. Close that down. If I double click the batch file, what I should see is a new window appear. This machine is for Contoso dev purposes only, and okay. And what we'll do is we're just going to go ahead and on this desktop, I'm going to go ahead and create a new shortcut. And I'm going to point into my Contoso.bat file. And we'll call this Contoso dev notice. And I guess we can just go in and under the properties, let's go in and change our icon. And let's just select maybe a star. Okay, so we now have our new icon on there. And with that done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out of this remote desktop session. And from here, I'm going to go in and I'm going to choose to create a custom image from the VHD. So at this point, I've deployed my formula. It's created my virtual machine and installed my artifacts. I've made some modifications to the machine. And what I want to do is I want to generate a new template from it. So I'm going to go ahead and create a custom image. From here, I'm going to call this DevTest Lab template, and from here I'm going to say that I have not run sysprep on the virtual machine, so I'll get the wizard to do it for me. And it says the machine will become unusable after running sysprep. A sysprep custom image will be created and a current user profile will be removed. So that's fine. So let's go ahead and say OK. and we can see that it's now creating the custom image DevTest Lab template. So again, we'll pause the video, we'll give this a few moments, and we'll come back and we'll see how we can apply this into our DevTest Lab. And we're back. We can see that our template has been created and our virtual machine is now in a stop state. Again, the reason this has happened is during the sysprep, this virtual machine has been generalized and removed all of its unique features. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this virtual machine. And as that deletes, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll create a new one using the template that we created. So let's go ahead to virtual machines. And as we come across, we should now see we've got a template in there too. And you can see second one down, DevTest Lab template. So if I go ahead and click on the template, let's just change my window. And we're going to call this DevTest Lab 2. The image is fine. So for the username, student, we're going to type in a password. Virtual machine size is fine. Virtual network and subnet is fine. Public IP address, yes. Now it's saying no artifacts are going to be installed, but that doesn't mean that we won't get our batch file and the Chrome browser, because that's already part of the template. This is just additional files if we wanted to add in. From here, I'm going to go ahead and hit create. And we can see that that machine is now being deployed. So again, it's going to take a few minutes. Let's pause the video and we'll come back when this is done. And we're back. And we can see that DevTest Lab 2 has now been created. So like before, let's go ahead and click in this. And from here, let's go ahead and connect. And we'll open up that RDP file. So just like before, let's connect. Let's authenticate in. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that those files appear on our desktop. So we'll just allow this to load up. And from here we can see we've got Google Chrome on the desktop. And if I come down into my C drive, we've got that Contoso batch file that we created earlier. In this session, we explored Azure DevTest Labs and learned how the tool can be used to simplify and streamline our development infrastructures. I thank you for your time and look forward to seeing you in our next session.